Hello, and welcome to a battle report replay for Heroes of Black Reach. It's a board game, but the counters are top-down view of 15mm figures. So if you have some 15mm scale figures, you can use them on your map boards to play. We're going to be using the tournament map that was it's available on the Devil Pig website. It was printed out here, and you can see that it has terrain on it to represent, and there are 4 objectives that are going to determine winning or losing the game, marked by the marks there. The center one, we're going to use the standard rules, where the 4 adjacent hexes or squares represent the control of that location. The other buildings, we're going to just use the 4 squares within that building, even though they're not all contiguous. Those squares represent control for those for those particular buildings and that objective. And the fountain at the top also has 4 squares that connect it. And you can see that we're just going to use the fountain as the objective, and then the 4 squares around it are the ones that are going to determine control of that. So let's look at the victory here. Well, each objective is worth 15 points. At the end of turn 4, you win if you've amassed 60 points. Turn 6, 80 points, and turn 8, most victory points. You also get victory points for destroying units. So that's the victory conditions there. To build your armies, you can go to the Devil Pig website, and it has an online army builder that allows you to click to the side if you want to add a unit to that side, and you can click and just boom, pop. You can just add the units right on. It's pretty handy. The standard way is with the cardboard tiles that came in the box game. Here we're basing the Orc army on the Green Raiders. You can see it has slots for upgrades all around it. When you're building your army, keep in mind that your command, which is the number of orders you can give, is kind of the equivalent of the morale of your army. If you build an army that has all kind of really good equipment but no orders to give that equipment, you're just going to have a lackadaisical army. So you want as many orders as you can get. Expect armor and plan accordingly. This game has a very strong rock, paper, scissors, and if you don't have enough armor piercing and you're met with tanks, you can't do anything. Tanks are immune to small arms fire for the most part, and so just have some can openers. But you also need infantry, because a lot of the terrain you cannot enter with a vehicle. So in this particular scenario, none of the terrain that is controlled for victory can be entered by any vehicles. So you're going to need some infantry for that. So just keep that in mind, that you don't go all armor heavy. However, when it comes to infantry, Marines are better at everything. You just have to accept that they have so many special abilities, which may not seem significant at first glance, like they're suppressing fire and they're fire on the move, but they really do make a difference. They're good. And then for the Orcs rely on assaulting and close assaults. And assaults are great, but while a Marine shoots at you, there's no chance for the Marine to be injured. When an Orc assaults a Marine, with all things being equal, there's a 50% chance that the Marine is going to win and hurt the Orc. So even on the Orc's turn, they're getting hurt. Keep that in mind. So here's the 2 armies that are 600 points each, built using the cardboard tiles. We start with the Green Raiders. They have grenades, and they took a rocket launcher. In addition to them, we took shooters. So the shooters have also upgraded with a big shooter. So now we've got all those units. And the shooters are somewhat not the best unit in the game, but they're kind of a filler. They're just there. We took a boss mob for this army. He has no intention of fighting, but he has the ability to take a boss upgrade, which gives him 2 orders. Down here, we're going to take Mega Knobs, and these guys are armored and can stand toe-to-toe with Marines, and we're taking a Kilocan upgrade for that particular unit. And last but not least, a Battle Wagon. This thing is a monstrosity. The Marines are going to have to take care of it. Down here, the Marines take Tactical Squad Vorlanus, and they're taking melta bombs and a Rhino, because they're going to use they're just mechanized. They don't feel like walking. They're going to ride into combat. It's a good unit. And then they're going to upgrade with a Dreadnought that has the Machine Spirit, which gives him his own order to use for that Dreadnought. Next, there's Tactical Squad Salinas. He's upgrading with a Rhino as well, but he's taken a Thunderfire cannon for some really powerful long-range artillery support. So this is what it would look like for the board game, all the recruitment tiles and then all the counters. Here's the Marines, the miniatures we'll be using, and the Orcs that we'll be using. Marines have initiatives, so they have to deploy first. So this is the Marine deployment, and you can see that they've deployed 3 squares out. Over here on the left, the Thunderfire cannon takes up position in this building with a big field of fire across the open. And there he is, tucked away, ready to dominate that section of the battlefield. Around the fountain, there's a lot of open ground. Back here, Sergeant Salinas and a tactical team take up position to support the Thunderfire cannon. And there you can see them behind that building. They'll be able to move forward to support and prevent that Thunderfire from being overrun. Next is the Rhino with the rest of Salinas squad in it. 2 teams in there. Beside that is the Dreadnought. Dreadnought, a very powerful unit and able to really crush the Orcs. And last we have this Rhino, which the entire tactical squad for Salinas is in. Every single one of those guys is in there. If they can race forward and grab terrain, they're going to be very hard to push out of that terrain. And here is that's a wall of armor, and so that's 3 heavy vehicles right there grouped together, and hopefully they'll be able to use their speed to move forward. We'll see how it works out for them. Back here, this is the Orc Deployment, and they have a lot of ragtag units. Let's see how they spread out. Now they were able to watch the Marine deployment and then deploy to counter that. On the extreme left, they have a Shooter and a Slugger just hanging out. I don't see their good idea to deploy in the open, but they should be able to scramble into safety before they get harmed. Next over is the Killican, and the Killican has extremely good armor piercing, and so he is lined up directly opposite of the Marine armor. Next is the rocket launcher, again armor piercing, and the first of the Mega Knobs. The Mega Knobs want to get in those buildings. Then we have a Slugger unit and another Mega Knob. Again, they're not in cover, but they should be okay until they can move up to some cover. And that's the rocket launcher, Mega Knob, Slugger, and Mega Knob going from right to left in that image there. And this is where the boss mob has taken up position. He told the guys to spread out, but they didn't seem to listen. So there's a Mega Knob. This one's armed with a flamer. And there's a unit of Sluggers in there, and then the boss is in the back. Beside that is the Battle Wagon. The Battle Wagon has a lot of offensive capabilities. And within the Battle Wagon, there are 3 Orc teams, a Slugger and 2 Shooters. So the Orcs are going to be able to advance with some mechanized power themselves. And last but not least is a big Shooter. If he can get into a position, he can provide some suppressive fire support during the battle. And there you can see the big Shooter on the left, the Battle Wagon next to the building, and then the building where the boss mob is hanging out with all of his buddies. So here we go. Order number 1. I'm not using the wooden tokens on the miniatures. They're just going to be kept off to the side. So it's pretty easy. You just count, unlike 40K where you have to measure. So the Rhino with the 2 teams from Salinas moves forward, takes up position behind the building. And the Orcs right away can see that already their plans have gone awry, because, you know, he just can't get a good shot at that guy. He's sort of tucked in behind that building, but there are Marines in there, so you have to kind of give a little bit of respect to that thing. So after looking it over from every possible angle, the Orcs have to decide what to do for their first order. Notice the respect given to this Killican by the Marines. They don't even step out in the road where he's got line of fire. So this Orc Mega Knob realizes that the Dreadnought has line of fire to him, so he is going to advance forward to capture the one rectangular building and also get out of firing for the Dreadnought. Next up, Marines go again. Vorlanus is still sitting in his Rhino. The Dreadnought is just covering the street. And the best option that the Marines have at this moment is the Thunderfire cannon because of its ability to fire long range. It has no long range penalty. And it also can fire indirectly, so it won't get any penalty for firing over all of the terrain obstructions of that fountain. It does have a chance of scattering. 1 in 4 it scatters, 5 or 6 it lands on target. So we're going to put the template right there and try to catch all 4 of the Orcs at one time. The indirect fire will be penalized by the terrain that the unit is in, but not by any obstacles between the firer and the target. It's a 1, so it's going to move 2 spaces in the direction indicated. It lands over there, and bad luck for those guys. They're going to suffer the hit. The blast template from the Thunderfire cannon comes in at a strength of 4. Against the Mega Knob, they rolled 2 plus 4 is 6. His defense in the shell hole is a 7. Against the other guy who's in the open, 4 plus 4 is 8. He only has a defense of 4. That means 2 hits. He's killed outright. So, next Orc move, surveying the battlefield. It's kind of tough because anything over a range of 7 is penalized firepower-wise, and the Orcs don't have much firepower to begin with. So they're going to have to expose themselves to close the gap, and it's going to be challenging. The best option they have is the battle wagon. So number 2 is going to go to the battle wagon. It's going to start up. It's going to advance forward, but it's going to take a position behind the fountain so that the Thunderfire cannon will be penalized if it shoots at it. Marines, there's Vorlanus still sitting still. Dreadnought's going to wait a little bit. What's going to happen is the next activation is going to be for one of the combat teams inside the Dreadnought, and it's going to be the Meltagun team. He comes out of the Dreadnought, occupies the building, and looking through the window, he's got a good clear side shot at the battle wagon. He needs to roll a 7 to hit, so they used the Marines used a card to give him a +1. Rolled a 6, got the hit. Rolled a 1 on the location. It's armor piercing, so it goes up to a 2. It's a hull hit. It will put 2 suppression markers on the battle wagon, which will make it much less effective next turn. And an additional hull hit will destroy it. So if you already have one of the damage markers for your particular vehicle, and you get another one in the same location, it's destroyed. So the battle wagon has been it's been impacted. But the more important thing is the Meltagun is set up for next turn. Next turn he will have a much greater chance because he won't be firing on the move, and he will be able to fry that battle wagon. So the Orcs have to figure out how to counter this using their limited abilities here. So this guy here, this Mega Knob particular one, has a medium flamer. It's a pretty good weapon. The Meltagun cleverly stayed outside of close combat range for the Orcs, but not outside of this guy's flamer template. So you drop the template down. He's activated for this particular turn. The template hits the Meltagun. It's -2 for firing on the move, so no damage. The Marines have pretty good defense. But the important thing about a flamer is even if there's no damage done, the flamer suppresses every unit that it fires at. So now this particular Meltagun is a little bit more vulnerable to being attacked. So things are getting a little dicey there in the center building with armor and infantry pouring in. So the Marines have to choose what to do now to how to counter this. Their Meltagun team is at risk because he's suppressed. And there are 3 units in that battle wagon who could leap out and launch close assaults against him, and he would be at a severe disadvantage because of his suppression. So the other fire team, the bolter team, is going to emerge from the Rhino, race forward, and take up a defensive position inside the fountain. His zone of control can prevent some movements, and it's going to help out the Meltagun team a little bit. And he's also in a good position to block units from advancing on the Thunderfire cannon. Next, the Orcs have to decide what to do. And even though that bolter team has taken the fountain, which is an unfortunate situation for them, they are going to try to hit that Melta team while it's down. So they're going to move back. You can't move through zone of control, but you can move into and out of it. So you see how they moved out of the zone of control of the bolter team, back into it, and now they're assaulting out of it. So that's a legal move. The dice is a even up throw. They're going to use a card to give them a +1 in this instance. The suppression basically takes away, the -2 to the suppression is going to take away the +2 for the defense for the Marines. And it looks like, yes, it's a tie, but the card made the difference. So the Marines have been hit. They take a wound, and they are forced to retreat from that location. Yeah, that's unfortunate for them. So I think the wounded Meltagunner is going to take a, he's going to drop back into the Rhino. He's going to fall back for now. He's not in good shape, so he'll fall back to the Rhino. All right, next up is the Marines option, and the Dreadnought is going to just move forward. He could take a shot at that Mega Knob in the building, but the penalties for moving and everything else are just astronomical. So it's really no chance. Next up is the Orcs, and the Killican is going to take his chances against the Dreadnought. Because the Dreadnought has already moved, the Killican is going to get the first shot here, and he has a pretty good chance. But not with a 1. So he's exposed himself, and he's got a standoff going, so he's going to have to seal the deal there. This is now the reserve phase, where units that do not have orders can move, and the rest of Sergeant Salinas' squad is going to move up, and Sergeant Salinas himself is going to move up. You've got to provide some support to the Thunderfire gun, because there's still a couple of units inside the battle wagon. And finally, Sergeant Vorlanis is going to fire up his Rhino and make his advance. So the Rhino moves forward up the street between the buildings and blocks that pathway, blocks the line of sight and everything going down through there pretty effectively. Then Sergeant Vorlanis is going to deploy a tactical team in that building, capturing it, and deploy a plasma gunner in this building, capturing it, or contesting it from the Orc, and then he's going to deploy another tactical team there to fight the Mega Knob, and Sergeant Vorlanis himself is going to deploy over here. So Sergeant Vorlanis is committed to taking these 2 buildings, and Sergeant Salinas' team is committed to the other 2 victory locations. So now the Orcs have to move their non-ordered units in the reserve phase, which is called the supply phase, but I think, to me, I look at it as a reserve phase. Well, let's call it a supply phase, because that's the way the game terminology uses. The rocket launcher is going to redeploy, giving him a clear line of sight to the Rhino. There's no cover for these 2 Orcs that are out in the open over here. So we're going to have to sacrifice, somebody's going to have to sacrifice. This Shuta unit is going to just try to sneak up, and maybe the Marines won't bother trying to kill him. And he might be able to sneak around in the back and do something, but by setting in the open adjacent to the Marines, he's almost inviting them to do some do some damage to him. So over here, we got some other supply moves. The noble that got hit by the Thunderfire cannon, he's suppressed, because if you don't get damaged by a Thunderfire shot, you get suppressed. It's similar to a flamer. Although, if you do get damaged by a Thunderfire, you don't get suppressed. It just, the rule is called frightening shot. And once you got that down, so the big shooter is going to advance, and he's going to take up cover behind the fountain there. He's in the open, but he's got obstacles between him, and he can put some firepower up. And then out of the battle wagon is going to emerge another unit, and it's going to take up position in the fountain too. And there's still a third unit in the battle wagon. It should probably stayed in there, but he's going to jump out and take up position in the fountain too, because they're getting close to me being able to make a rush at the Thunderfire cannon. So this is the end of the turn when viewed from the Orc position, because this is the Orcs will be going first next turn. They will have the initiative. So this is the situation with Sergeant Vorlanus has positioned 4 units and a Rhino in the street to attack these 2 buildings, and the Orcs only have 1 Mega Nob in contesting those 2, and the shooters outside are just not going to be able to do much. Here's a standoff, Killican versus Dreadnought, and that is it's an old-fashioned gunfight in the street. I'm not sure how that's going to work out for the Orcs. And in this building, the Orcs were successful in pushing the Melt-A-Gun team out, protecting their battle wagon and capturing this location. So that was a good move on their part. And over here, this is kind of bad for the Orcs. They're in a good position to do some damage, but they're also bunched together, and that leaves them susceptible to that template. If the template lands without scattering, there could be some serious damage done to the Orcs that are grouped together there. Okay, so we're on to turn 2. Orcs have the initiative. This will be their order number 1, and they are going to take the shot against the Dreadnought, and they're not playing around. They're going to use a card that gives them a +1, so they need a 3 to hit. Bam, they got it. So now we need to roll for the damage location. Each vehicle has a type of damage chit, and the Dreadnought uses this yellow one. One is the movement, so it's been shot in the leg. It cannot move for the remainder of the battle. Could have been better. 6 would have been better and blowed it up, but it won't be moving around. So the Marines are going to have to take this shot with the Thunderfire cannon. It's just too tempting to pass up Orcs grouped together like that. And the Marines are going to drop the template right there, and they rolled a 6 for location, so it doesn't scatter. That's going to really hurt the Orcs big time, because they could take some real damage here. Here, the defense of the Orc is a 6. The gun does a 4. That's only a 5. Does not wound that unit. However, he will be suppressed because of the Thunderfire frightening shot rule. This guy is in the open. The gun does 4. The dice does 4. His defense is only 4. So he takes 2 hits and is blown to smithereens. That's 2 units that were blown to smithereens outright by the Thunderfire cannon in 2 turns. There is a 3rd unit in the fountain. His defense is 4. The fountain gives him 2, so he's got a 6. The gun does 6, and he takes a wound. So the Thunderfire cannon has sort of broken up this attack, suppressing 1 unit, wounding 1 unit, and eliminating another one. That's going to make the Orcs attack a little bit weaker. So next action for the Orcs is going to be to open up with the battle wagon. He still has one suppression marker from last turn, and he still has a lot of firepower. And there are two tactical squads here that are in the way of his fire. This guy is in cover. This guy is not. He only has a slight line of sight hindrance. So the main gun is going to open up first, and the main gun does nothing. Now, this battle wagon has two machine guns, and they're able to use suppressing fire. So they're going to double their firepower to 6. However, they have to choose different targets. Conveniently, there are 2 targets. So we're going to hit this guy with 6. His defense in the fountain is a 7, and it's -2 to the dice roll. And he is suppressed. In this screen, you didn't see the dice, but he got suppressed. This guy has defense 5-1 for this screen here, and he's being hit with 6, and he gets suppressed also. So both tactical squads for Sergeant Salinas are suppressed. That means all their dice rolls are -2, and their movement is -2 for this turn. So those guys are really going to be in trouble this turn. In fact, they could be it could really be hit hard because the Orcs are coming through this building and can come at them. Yeah. So desperate times calls for desperate measures. When a unit's suppressed, it loses its zone of control. So they can't even stop guys from just racing right through. The Meltagun, who is wounded, is going to have to reemerge from the Rhino and take up a position to defend the other members of his squad, Sergeant Salinas' squad. I'm keeping the counter underneath him because, in a reminder that he is wounded. As part of his move, he might as well take a shot. He did it last time. And he needs a 7, so he's going to use a card to give him a +1. If he rolls a 6, he gets another hit on the battle wagon, and he'll be the hero of the day. And a lot of times, if you have fire on the move and you move, take the shot. It doesn't hurt you to take the shot. He failed, though. So here's the situation. This unit is going to activate to support the assault of this unit of Orcs. They're going to charge up and charge into the Meltagun. It's a stand-up, even fight, but the support from the side is going to give the Orcs an extra 1. Both sides have the assault bonus, so they're going to roll 2 dice and choose the higher of the 2. Some units don't have assault ability. They can't launch assaults, and then when they defend against an assault, they only roll 1 dice. But in this instance, both units have the assault icon, so each of them are going to roll 2 dice. So let's see. And the Orcs beat him outright. They didn't even need that supporting unit. Yeah, so that's his second wound, and he's eliminated, and the Orcs take his place. So the next activation, the Sergeant Vorlanis tactical squad here is going to open fire on the Meganob that's in the 1 victory condition building, because Sergeant Vorlanis, he had those 2 buildings sewed up if he can get rid of that guy, but the roll's a 1. No damage at all. Wow, that situation looked pretty good there for a while, but that 1 Meganob just refuses to leave the building. And in fact, he is going to activate and launch his own attack. He's going to fire on the move and assault. Again, if you have fire on the move, it doesn't hurt you to take the shot. He doesn't have suppressing fire, but he does have fire on the move, so he's going to try to wound the Marine before he assaults him. And it's not a really great chance. Let's see what he does. No, he does not wound the Marine, but he's still going to go in for the assault. The Meganobs each have a different profile. You know, the one has a flamer. The profiles are lined up on the back of the board in order from where they are from left to right. This guy's got a 5 in close assault, so he's really a close fighting guy. The Marine's defending with a 4. So the Orcs are +1, and there's the die roll. They both select the highest, which would be the 5s. The Orcs +1, and he's been summarily pushed back. So that's yeah, Sergeant Vorlanus' team isn't doing so well. They've been tasked to control those 2 buildings, and they're being pushed about by a single mega knob. Now, this guy has to retreat. There's a plasma team behind him, so he has to retreat into the open street, and he's now wounded. And the mega knob moves forward. So that's it's an interesting turn of events. Vorlanus was unable to clear the building with his entire. Really, he's got 2 buildings with an entire squad. Next, the Dreadnought is going to rip into that building over there. This particular Dreadnought is built out for primarily anti-infantry combat. I thought he would make short work of that Killican, but really the Killican has a better build out for armor than the Marine does. That Marine, though, has a chain gun type gun, and he has 2 weapons. I think the one's a Stormbolter, and the first one wounds, and now the big gun. Big gun has 5 firepower, which is incredible, and the big gun wounds also. So that particular Orc unit, which is a Slugga unit, is blown to pieces and eliminated. So that's 3 Orc units that have just been killed in short order. I mean, all 3 of them were killed pretty summarily, and then there's another one wounded. So the Green Raiders are taking some lumps here. So the next Orc order is to bring another Mega Knob up and try to take a shot at the tactical squad that was injured. He's going to fire on the move. Tactical squad's in the open. And doesn't do it. Does not wound him. But that tactical squad is, being in the open is not a good place for him to be when he's wounded. He's in a little bit of trouble. And last order for the Marines. This is kind of I think they need to seal this flank, and this 1 unit of shooters just can't be ignored. So he's going to fire and assault. Firing does wound them, and then close assault against the shooters in the open, especially after they've already been wounded. Yeah, it's a lot of times the Marines have to choose their close assaults carefully, because you could botch the roll and get injured during your own turn, which is bad. But yeah, they butcher those guys. Actually, I think they've done yeah, they wiped them out, because they took a wound from the fire on the move. They took their final wound from the close assault. So that's 4 Orc units now. The Green Raiders began with 9 maneuver elements, and 4 are dead and 1 is wounded. So that's it's going to be difficult for the Orcs to come back and well, they have extra troops, but the numbers are starting to even out very rapidly after 2 turns. So supply phase, Orcs will support the victory location building and send some help to that Mega Knob. And over here, this unit is going to, it only has 1 movement because of its suppression. It's going to move over there and take a position in the fountain. This unit is wounded, but it's going to move towards the Thunderfire cannon. It has someone has to make that final rush and try to engage that unit in close combat, because the Thunderfire cannon is not as good in close combat. The next move for the supply phase is the flamer guy is just going to boldly just march forward. The suppressed Marine units do not have a zone of control, so he was able to walk directly past that unit that was in the fountain because he's suppressed. Now the Marines reserves, the plasma gun from Vorlanus has been tasked to go support Sergeant Salinas. Sergeant Salinas is really up against it because the loss of the melta-gun took some of his anti-tank ability away. And remember that Sergeant Vorlanus' team is the ones with the melta-bomb, so that unit also has a melta-bomb. This suppressed unit has one movement left. He's going to fall back into cover. That mega knob with a flamer directly in his face is not a pleasant sight, so he's going to try to seek some cover. And that's about it for reserve moves. So here's the situation at the beginning of turn 3 from the Marine side. The Marines will be moving first, and here's a couple of points of interest. There are 4 Orc units pouring through, approaching the Thunderfire cannon. That's something that's going to have to be dealt with at some point in the during the next turn, because the Thunderfire cannon has really done a lot of damage, and it can effectively just fire every turn. The battle wagon is going to be operational this turn. It'll lose its last suppression marker, so it's going to get back to full movement and full firepower. That's a problem. And over here, there's 2 mega knobs and a kilocan have advanced, and they are surrounding this wounded Marine in the open in the street. So he's going to have to figure out how he's going to get out of that situation. Over here, these 4 units are actually completely pinning down and surrounding this Marine who's taken a refuge in the fountain. Ultramarines are going to have to do something to pull him out of that predicament that he finds himself in. Okay, so that's the end of this recording. I'm going to try to finish the battle and upload the rest of it. This already went a little bit long, but just wanted to share with you this game that I've been enjoying quite a bit. All right, thanks for watching.